Chapter 2, The Echeloned Strategy Process. It seems that 80% of the leaders of small to mid-sized companies feel that they have a well-defined and complete strategy all mapped out and effectively being followed through upon. But the reality I see after auditing many of these plans and supposed strategic processes is that the vast majority of companies don't have a fleshed-out strategy and are missing several key elements, such as decisions on direction, essential areas of objectives, and most importantly, steps that make a strategy a process. Most companies could significantly build up, rev up, and more effectively follow through on an intensified growth-focused strategy. Ensure that there is a regular quarterly walkthrough of your strategy and constantly look for the areas where you can punch up your strategy with more aggressive and growth-oriented steps. Also consider an annual or even semi-annual complete audit of your strategy, objectives, and progress by an outside third party. Executives have personal coaches. Why shouldn't companies have strategic growth coaches? You want to go beyond your past interpretations and expressions of the strategic thinking pyramid for vision, mission, values, and roles in this chapter. The current forms of these aspects in your existing strategy may be limiting, so begin an audit and facilitate a souping up of these areas. Here are some of the methodologies for doing just that. How to construct a vision of significant growth. Does your business have a compelling vision of growth that inspires your team? In our consulting, I've seen teams and individuals reach 3-year revenue objectives, doubling, even tripling the rate of revenues in just 100 days because of having a crystal clear 3-year target vision and initiating significant amounts of innovation. I encourage you to have both leadership and sales producers create blue sky objectives that focus on what is possible, not just probable, in a growth pattern over at least a 3-year period. When possibility objectives have been set and are continuously strategized upon, revenues inevitably increase because of the innovations that are discovered and implemented. In the classic sense, a vision and its structure are quite flexible. A vision statement can be a 5-page document of an owner's or leader's long-term desires, hopes, and dreams for a company, or a 10-word outcome-focused description of what an organization hopes to achieve in its market or in the world. Some companies have 150 or even 10-year vision statements. Some century-old companies that created 100-year vision statements have realized exactly what they intended. Other companies, especially those in survival turnaround mode, may have visions that are only looking out several months or quarters due to significant constraints and survivability issues. Often companies are in a need of a turnaround because they've never had a compelling vision or even had a vision at all. Top leadership usually shapes the vision statement, but it can also be a collective effort. For your purpose of turning around a company or forging ahead into an accelerated growth mode, I strongly suggest that you reshape your vision to be acutely angled toward aggressive growth, with specific detail about what you aim to realize. Just as I challenge every leader we work with, I challenge you to think about the answer to this question. If all the stars were to align, and your organization were to accomplish all that it possibly could accomplish in the next 3 years, or what you think the appropriate vision timeline might be, what are the most optimistic outcomes you can imagine your organization achieving? I like the 3-year timeline because it's readily imaginable to most people. As one client quipped, it's just the year after next. On the other hand, you need to balance any vision, goal, or target with a certain amount of realism so as not to lose the buy-in of your team. You should research, report, and discuss with your leadership team what past growth patterns have looked like for some of the most successful companies in your industry or of a similar nature or structure. This research can give incontrovertible proof as to what is possible, and it shouldn't be a limiting factor. You must emphasize with your team that fantastic future growth rates are based on innovations and changes that you have yet to discover or implement. So I challenge you to push the envelope, to create a vision that is both believable and highly optimistic. Perhaps the greatest limiting factor in the growth of a business is the boundary of the team's thoughts. Myriad stories are available of great achievements based on visions that in some elicited mockery, but in others inspired thoughts of faith and hope of what was possible. As a leader, you must realize that your thoughts may be the single greatest constraining factor in the growth of a business. As a leader, your casting of a limiting vision may be the most limiting factor for your company. Far better for you to err on the side of aiming too high and too great in your hopes. If you have any doubt about the optimism and the appropriate stretch of your vision, you need to call in for an outside party's confidential advice. There have been some presidents of our client companies who were about to cast a vision but held off on sharing it and either listened to the team about what they thought was the fuller potential or just raised the bar from their original vision's target based on our exhortation. In most cases like this, a much greater achievement was realized. In other words, momentous growth in a company occurred based on one single and relatively small change in the hope of the vision. A vision is as powerful in changing the course and achievement of a company as the relatively small rudder of a ship or a strand of DNA. Ask yourself every quarter if there is any needless limitation in any aspect of your vision. Communicating the growth or turnaround vision. A vision kept secret is as worthless as no vision at all. Visions must be shared and discussed often, all throughout the organization. A great vision is a defensible competitive advantage that cannot be taken away from your company, so proclaim it boldly and often. Your team may be languishing because they are unclear as to what the vision is, or they may be uninspired by the long-term direction of your business. Their faith and motivation is built when they feel a sense of direction and greater purpose. Some leaders instinctively know what path to take in order to reach the business's vision and goals, but they aren't effectively communicating the vision and thus are limiting the speed and potential of achieving that vision. One of your top responsibilities is to communicate and discuss the vision. This responsibility isn't just for the titular leader, but anyone who is part of leadership. This is why it is critical for you to ensure that adequate buy-in to the vision is happening within your leadership team. How a clear and focused mission can accelerate growth. A short, concise mission that captures what you do for what kind of customers with an emphasis on significant return, profit, or growth for the customer can become transformational in focusing sales, marketing, and other efforts throughout your company. The clearer your mission to help your customers grow, the more synergy it has in helping to accelerate growth for your own company. The following is a checklist of ideal features to have in a growth-oriented mission and the steps you could take to build it out. You can have your team answer yes, absolutely, or no, not at all, or somewhat to these questions as a way to go through the process of refining your mission together. First, does your mission show how you foster growth for your customer? The power of an excellent mission is that it focuses and inspires both employees and customers, thus impacting your company's growth. Does your mission inspire growth? Does it reference growth at all? Do you even have a true mission statement? Secondly, does it inspire the team's commitment? The mission should inspire. It is what you want your organization to be known for. Does it merely position your company as a provider of products, or does it position your company as a partner in the customer's success? Thirdly, does it define why you do what you do and why your organization exists? There are unique, powerful, and relevant reasons you are in the business you are in. Does your mission convey your competitive advantage or uniqueness? Too often, the small company forgets the strength it has against the larger competitors. Are you just a local provider of your customers' needs, or are you a family-owned independent that can choose multinational providers' products based on what will make their business more money as opposed to just selling a product because you manufacture it? Fourthly, does your mission provide your team direction for doing the right things? The old adage, in essentials unity, in actions freedom, in all things trust, is in great need of emphasis with many businesses today. Your mission should help to direct action within your team. Ideally, it should empower them to make grassroots decisions and better serve the customer. Are you a company striving for quality service, as they all say, or a company that aims to get customers to associate your brand with the absolute best service in the market, to paraphrase a top-rated online retailer's mission? Fifthly, does your mission address your opportunities for growth? What is your potential in your market? What is the potential of your team given your products and services? If you're aiming to be the number one local provider of your services, or to innovate the best solutions for achieving goals never before set, then let it be known. A sixth question, does your mission match your competence? Seventh, does it say for what your company wants to be known or remembered for? When you've helped a customer reach an important goal, is what they would say to their neighbor included in your mission statement? Eighth, is it concise and sharply focused? Is it clear, cogent, and easily understood? It should fit on a t-shirt. Perhaps you should print up some mission tees. Can your team and customer remember your mission, and is it catchy enough to make an impression? We've seen companies imprint their mission on shirts, stationery, playing cards, hats. When the benefit of what you do is clearly and concisely stated, positive branding occurs much more frequently. And finally, should the mission be revisited? If so, what changes should be considered? Gather your team's answers and determine which aspect of your mission need refinement. Create a new version and then conduct the self-assessment process on that until a healthy version emerges. How to create and reinforce a set of growth-oriented values and commitments. You can trace the vast majority of all conflict within a team back to the lack of clarification on healthy, agreed-upon values and/or lack of reinforcement of those values. You can also trace a team's lack of follow-through on the strategy back to the lack of values reinforcing the strategic growth priorities. Many companies have an old set of value statements written by a founder or a previous management team, and these values may hang on the wall or be pasted into collateral, but unless they are vigorously reinforced, they will wither and die and actually become an antithesis to their intent. So whether these old values speak of the priority of the customer, or providing service, or treating others with respect, or even being innovative, there are a few steps any management team can take to make this essential element of strategy more impactful and fuel accelerated growth than to recraft the values. Do you have conflict in your workplace, or is growth not as fast as it should be? What is the cost of conflict on productivity and effectiveness? Is there a lack of focus on priorities for accelerating growth and innovation, or a lack of enough attention on the customer? Aligning your company values to the direction you want to be going can make the difference in all these areas. To make values work as a tool for improving teamwork and reducing conflict, start by having your team answer a few questions each year. This can be facilitated in an all-hands-on-deck exercise or in divisions. In the latter case, the results need to be fed back to the entire team after all have participated. The initial key questions are: 1, how do employees and customers want to be treated in the workplace? 2, what is important to us as an organization? 3, how will we deal with it when someone doesn't live up to our values? Because people tend to support that which they help to create, everyone should have input into these answers. To supercharge the values in an organization and transform them into strategic, growth-oriented values, we also need to ask teams 2 other questions. 1, how should we conduct our work both with each other and customers? 2, what kind of environment do we need to foster in our company, in our work, and in our relationships in order to maximize joy in the workplace as well as the growth rate, profitability, and stability we need in this company? Have every employee openly discuss the top traits, qualities, ways, habits, environments, and attitudes in a word, values that are needed to live and work by, and list this out. The list will usually have several dozen potential values. Then ask each individual to privately list out the top 6 of those values that he or she feels are the highest priority and that will most accelerate growth and improve satisfaction, happiness, and profitability in the workplace. Next, have employees team up in twos and agree on a top 6 values together. Then repeat the same process in teams of 4, then 8, and so on, until the entire team has come up with their top 6 to 10 values that will create the optimum environment. As facilitators, my company will then conduct a similar process around the question, how will we deal with it when one of us doesn't live up to these values? This is a much tougher but more important question and is key to ensuring that the values become reality. Depending on time, either the group or a committee could work on also building working definitions of each value and perhaps give examples. Then often my clients will have the final document printed on a poster and ceremoniously signed by the entire team. Leadership should regularly and publicly recognize employees as good examples of walking out the values. Values are reinforced by the avatars that best live them out. And of course, it's the leadership that must be the most exemplary. There may be strategically important values that only top management would recognize as a priority. So you will need to ensure that issues like the innovation in emerging businesses, new technologies, or the involvement of the customer are worked into the values as appropriate. The benefit of involving the whole team in this process is that it is a great team building and communication exercise, but management must ensure that all of the right values have been prioritized into the list and are adequately propagated and reinforced. Most team building exercises, such as rope courses and falling backwards into your coworkers' arms, can be a waste of time when compared to having the team create growth-oriented values and strategic objectives that will work to accelerate growth. These exercises will also help to create emotional ownership, the CEO of your growth-oriented culture. We've seen the values clarification process be a key part in greatly increasing the growth rate and size of companies while making for a much happier workplace. This process can be transformational to cultures in need of a boost or turnaround. Revisit your values regularly and reinforce them both with accountability efforts and recognition of your exemplars. The read and rip method. People tend to support that which they help to create. A great method to synthesize a group's contributions to the creation of a vision, a mission, values, and objectives is to use the read and rip method. It works this way. Assemble a small enough group that you can read their remarks aloud or post them in short order so that they can read or hear and internalize each other's input rather quickly. With each phase of refining an issue, you will ask the assembled group to write out their ideas or versions of the discussed issue. For example, the ideal mission statement or the ideal objectives for improving communications within your company. Then you as facilitator collect the ideas, read them aloud, post them on a slide or flip chart. Each attendee's version is read through, and then in dramatic flair, you rip up the flip charts or whatever and say, okay, you've heard the group's thoughts on the ideal version of this issue. Now, taking in the best of what you've heard, write out a newer, more inspired idea. You as a facilitator read and perhaps even rip again until you feel that the true synthesis has occurred among your participants. This is a powerful team building and synthesizing tool. Regardless of the size of a company, even with teams of thousands, I have used this tactic with great success in getting the team to feel that they have truly contributed to the output of whatever strategic issue has been addressed. And because people tend to support that which they help to create, this is one of the most effective methods to meld a team into one spirit and direction. Aligning and echeloning will occur with the frequent use of the read and rip method. The echeloned role exercise. Optimize the roles of your leadership team in order to optimize growth. Rarely do executives, management, and knowledge workers leverage their talents as often as they could in the work environment. And here is a simple process you can regularly walk your leadership and teams through that will help them spend more time doing the work that will accelerate growth and/or turn around your company. One facet of the definition of management is leveraging the strengths of individuals and resources while minimizing the impact of their weaknesses. If you keep that definition in mind and consider the fact that most people know what they need to do in order to become more effective in their role, then you'll see that your task becomes to facilitate regular discussion on what it will take for your team members to do more of what they do well, and thus deliver a higher ROI and acceleration of growth. For all that, one of the most important management questions is, what should we stop doing? The following 2 role clarification exercises will help your team to do less of what is holding them up, from focusing on the growth objectives and more of what they should be focused upon. In more than 20 years of facilitating the following exercise, my experience has been that most people will be very accurate and honest in answering the following questions. But you must ensure that this exercise is conducted in a safe environment. At the end of the session, I'll offer a few ideas that help to open the doors of communication. These questions follow a strategic pattern so as to engender a healthy dialogue among your team about role development and focus. Have your team members answer them in order. 1. My professional skill strengths as they apply to being part of this team are 2. My professional skill weaknesses as they apply to being part of this team are 3. The strengths of my personality that affect my roles in this team are 4. The weaknesses of my personality that put a drag on the effectiveness of my roles on this team are 5. The activities I most want to be doing on a regular basis for this team are 6. The work activities I least want to be doing on a regular basis, yet might be normally required for me in my position on this team are 7. The current definition of my role and responsibilities on this team is 8. The changes I would like to see in my role and responsibilities on this team, or what I would like to see my new role and responsibilities become in the near future in order for me to most help accelerate growth, are. The presenter of those 8 points will then be under a ban of silence, and each member of the participating team will give feedback on the following. 1. What I see to be your key strengths and what I recommend you to do more of or focus more intently on. 2. What I or my team can do better to support you in your role or in the evolution of your role. And 3. Things you could reduce or eliminate to free up time for your priority focus areas. What I find fascinating in using this questioning strategy is that most of the time, participants are surprisingly accurate and honest about their weaknesses and priorities. I recommend that the highest-ranking leader go first in the exercise. His or her honesty will inspire the others to feel safe in opening up about their weaknesses as well. Also, the first to go can set the example of being receptive and silent during the feedback phase, which is utterly critical, the ban of silence. Maintaining focus with the semi-annual Role Focus 12 letter. An excellent best practice that can help your management team focus on the right areas and help to resolve misunderstandings about their role and focus is the semi-annual use of the Role Focus 12. The process requires each subordinate to write a Role Focus 12 letter to his or her manager, which answers the following 12 questions. 1. What are the top objectives of my direct manager's role? 2. What are the top objectives of my own role? 3. What are the performance standards that are being applied to me? 4. What are the major constraints and obstacles in my unit? 5. What are the things the company does that most help me? 6. What are the things that my superior does that most help me? 7. What are the things my company does that most hinder me? 8. What are the things my superior does that most hinder me? 9. In the last 6 months, the successes of my focus have been 10. In the last 6 months, the areas in which I wish I had done better were 11. What accomplishments, projects, or deliverables do I propose to have done in the next year to reach the above objectives? 12. What are the activities on which I most need to focus in order to accelerate my progress toward these objectives? Whereas a healthy company working toward an accelerated growth mode might only require the Roll Focus 12 to be exchanged every 6 months, companies in a live or die turnaround may benefit from completing it much more frequently, as roles and objectives may be changing at a faster than normal pace. Facilitating and building your growth pyramid. With the tools in this chapter, you will be able to facilitate the building of a more growth-oriented set of mission, vision, values, and role statements. As we will discuss further in Chapter 4, all of these need regular review as part of an ongoing process. This will ensure that your team is on the same page and that every aspect of the strategic growth pyramid is as aggressive as it can be in its focus on turnaround and/or growth.